Hello? Master! You gave me a spook. Might there be a book you're keen to have right now? The Tale of Genji? Are you not familiar with my story? To summon a person with history and not be privy to their background is naive. But perhaps that is how you are able to befriend even villains. I penned this piece long ago during what you would consider the 11th century, I presume? I wouldn't expect you to be able to read it as I have written it anyway. Please do not take that the wrong way. It is simply a matter of fact, for what you might call modern Japanese has evolved since my time. What was poetic then would naturally be very strange to you reading it now. Much like, that Shakespeare fellow. His relevance to the modern English language. You would be familiar with him, and I crafted this tale together hundreds of years before he was ever born. So imagine the evolution of writing if you can. The world's oldest novel. Fascinating, isn't it? A work so distant has been passed down generation after generation. It is triumphant, yes, but it is disheartening to me nonetheless that my little touches may have been lost in translation. My apologies for tangling the pace. However, it is imperative that you understand this, and I only have so much time I would like to devote to this, so how about I grant you a summary from the original artist's vision? Or perhaps not quite so pristine. I am only an amalgamated memory of a past life muddled by a summoner's influence. I'll do my best, just as many generations past have done. The Tale of Genji begins with his father, the emperor of a time deep in the Heian period of my home country, and his concubines are disapproving in their discovery that he favors a woman known as the Lady of the Paulownia court, Lady Kiritsubu, as she possesses the beauty to capture the emperor's heart without any noble blood to speak of on her behalf. For this reason, they unleash their torment onto Lady Kiritsubu until her dying breath, but not before she gives birth to a baby boy, Genji Hikaru. The emperor grieves, and more worrisome yet, Genji's inherited physical charms by his mother's flesh proved to be impressive enough to threaten the position of Genji's older half-brother, Suzaku, the crown prince. Suzaku's mother, Lady Kokuden, being the bitter hen that she is, complains so vehemently that the ill-tempered emperor cannot stand any more agony and casts his own son into the role of a non-royal member of the clan instead, akin to a commoner, to ease his own torment. By the time the boy Genji had come of age, the emperor managed to find a new lady to quell his aching heart, Fujitsubo, a woman nearly as perfect as his late favorite darling. Meanwhile, Genji too found someone of interest to him. Despite having arranged to be wedded to another woman, he began disguising himself on the street regularly to meet with a young flower attendant, who happened to be the former lover to his brother-in-law, Tono Chujo. In the fall, frustrated with the game, Genji takes it upon himself to steal the attendant to a deserted house for the night. However, he is awoken by the presence of an apparition next to his pillow, and finds the lady of the evening faces dead in its place. This relationship would mark the true beginning of Genji's tale, as this maiden would be the first of his many tragic lovers to come. By the following spring, Genji begins to suffer from a great illness himself and seeks refuge in the mountains from a renowned sage. Nearby the sage's dwellings reside a bishop housing several women and children, one in particular striking Genji with an irresistible fancy. A 10-year-old girl who resembles the emperor's last concubine, Fujitsubo. Genji was possessed by a vicious and ridiculous hunger for her father's Fujitsubo that he could not ignore, and anything likened to her had to be his gain. This child was no different. Her name was Murasaki, and although the bishop is unwilling to leave her in the hands of an absolute stranger, Genji wants this child for himself more than anything else in the world. In time, His mental festering coaxes him into simply stealing Murasaki from the bishop and installing her into his family's palace. At the same time, Fujitsubo had fallen ill as well and left the palace to spend time far away with her family. Happening upon this opportunity himself, Genji's lust hunts for his own father's mistress and forces his urges onto Fujitsubo at long last. However, this came at a price, similar to his previous sexual rendezvous. This time, the price of a child, identical in appearance to Genji Hikaru, named Reizei, that winter. In the meantime, since Genji was away, the Emperor hands the throne off to Suzaku, as promised, but Reizei, whom no one at the palace realized was Genji's son, was assigned into Genji's care, and Fujitsubo will be named the Empress come summer, away from Genji's primal reach. For now. Not long after, Genji's first bride, the woman he had been arranged to marry, dies while giving birth prematurely. It is at this moment Genji decides that it is time to wed the young girl of his heart's deepest infatuation, the one he had stolen from her coincidental resemblance to Fujitsubo, Murasaki. Murasaki is reasonably troubled by this decision, since she has only seen Genji as a father up to this point. But Genji dedicates all of his time to her now, to have her see otherwise. That is, until Genji's father, the old emperor, becomes ill and suddenly dies. With Suzaku and his mother, Lady Kokuden, now in full control of the palace, Fujitsubo has no interest in staying, and leaves to be with her family permanently. Much like before, Genji's lust cannot hold itself back whenever Fujitsubo exposes herself, and he leaps into action, forcing himself upon her again. Or so he tries. Fujitsubo successfully fends Genji off this time and denies his woefully aggressive advance. This, of course, angers Genji, and in his eagerness to punish her for this denial, he cuts off all contact with Fujitsubo and deliberately ignores Reizei, their beautiful son. Upon a realization of how Genji has chosen to retaliate, Fujitsubo considers it to make peace with him, if only for the sake of this son. There is an intense air of hostility brewing in the capital, for both Fujitsubo and Genji regarding what has happened. The woman declares that she will become a Buddhist nun by December to escape this suffocating atmosphere, while the man is caught tangled in the bed of another woman related to a powerful minister. This latter scandal erupts in the court. Properly contemplative for once in his life, Genji visits his father's grave and sends a letter to Reizei regarding his circumstances, and sentences himself into exile toward the land of Suma. Murasaki is always on the mind of Genji as he continues to write letters to everyone in the capital, including all of the women. When this fact reaches Lady Kokuden's ears, and she learns that her son is among the addressed letters, she cuts off Genji's communications. So, when a violent storm comes to Suma, Genji dedicates himself to a prayer, and through a dream, the spirit of his father, the old emperor, visits Genji in order to convince him to return to the capital. On his way back, he meets with another woman along the Akashi coast, a former governor's daughter, and he sleeps with her as well. He does confess his affair to Murasaki afterwards, but remember this for later. Genji begins to form journals and sketchbooks of his time in Akashi, and recounts the sights and the arts he has shown. Upon his return, he discovers that the spirit of his father may have been in the right. Suzaku had grown gravely ill since the storm and abdicated his role as emperor over to Reizei in his stead. With his kin on the throne, Genji is promoted from exiled to minister rather swiftly. With his newfound position, Genji orders for a house to be built, for his neglected favorite concubines to reside within. That's right. There were quite a number of other women he had exploited which I had not described to you previously. But you seem to be dozing off a little, so my judgment in skipping much of their respective stories is proving to be pretty agreeable with you at the moment. Bear with me now. I have nearly reached the end of Genji's tale. One of Genji's past lovers returns into his life after she has nearly succumbed to illness. On her deathbed, she speaks to Genji again, and pleads with him to take care of her daughter, Agikonomu, but not to assimilate her into his nest of concubines. Genji complies, and instead decides it best to arrange her into wedlock with his son and current emperor, Reizei. However, she must compete with the daughter of Tono Chujo, who you might remember as Genji's brother-in-law from the beginning of this story. The very same he wanted to avoid trouble in the first place. Well, From observing Reise's love for the arts, Genji decides to try a contest between the two girls to determine who would be best suited to wed his son based on this interest. A contest of art critique. Although Tono Chujo attempts to teach his daughter the methods of painters, Akiko Nomu is already an artist herself, but the contest is fairly even until Genji reveals his trump card, artwork he had inspected from his time in Akashi. The room falls silent, and Akiko Nomu clenches her victory. Reise and Akiko Nomu join in wedlock, and Genji takes a graceful withdrawal from public affairs. And with that, you've gone to sleep. Please, just refrain from snoring, alright? I wish upon you a peaceful sleep. Master.